Marcus Knight was once hailed as the next big thing in black tech, a bold visionary, a smooth-talking CEO with a startup that promised to change the game. But after a brutal investor betrayal and a failed product launch, he lost everything. Now he's broke, blacklisted, and driving across the desert in a beat-up Mercedes with nothing but his pride in the passenger seat. He thinks the worst is behind him, until he picks up a mysterious hitchhiker on the side of a dusty Arizona highway. She's calm, composed, and carrying a duffel bag she refuses to open. Her name is Ray, and what Marcus doesn't know is she's not just running from a bad breakup or a road trip gone wrong. She's running from the FBI, from a powerful family cover-up, and from a fortune that's been stolen in her name. One is searching for redemption, the other for freedom. Neither of them knows that their chance meeting is about to unravel a conspiracy, challenge everything they believe, and change their lives forever. This is not just a story about a hitchhiker and a CEO, it's about secrets, survival, and the wild, unpredictable power of fate. Just a year ago, Marcus Knight's name meant something. He was the rising star in Silicon Valley, a charismatic black CEO whose mobile finance app had attracted millions in venture capital. He gave TEDx talks, graced magazine covers, and headlined panels about black excellence in tech. People called him the digital disruptor, and he wore that title with pride. He had swagger, brains, and a plan, but none of that mattered now. Now, Marcus sat behind the wheel of a dusty, rusted-out 208 Mercedes-Benz, the AC long dead, and the check engine light flickering like a warning from the universe. The desert sun beat down on his windshield as he drove along a nearly empty stretch of Arizona highway. His bank account was low, his inbox full of rejection, and the last investor he pitched to told him, "Great idea, just not with you." Marcus gritted his teeth as the car began to sputter. A strange knocking sound echoed from under the hood, followed by a quiet wheeze. "Come on, not now," he muttered, giving the dashboard a light smack. The car coughed, lurched, and rolled to a stop on the shoulder. He sat in silence for a few seconds, gripping the steering wheel, breathing through the rising anger in his chest. He had nowhere to be, but the stillness made everything feel worse. The heat was unbearable, and his water bottle was nearly empty. And then he saw her. About 50 yards ahead, standing at the side of the road, was a woman. She looked to be in her late 20s, maybe 30. She wore faded jeans, a black tank top, and mirrored sunglasses that reflected the endless road behind her. A heavy duffel bag rested at her feet. She stuck her thumb out toward the horizon like something out of an old movie. Marcus hesitated. Picking up hitchhikers wasn't exactly on his to-do list, especially in the middle of nowhere, but something about her looked desperate, and not in a way that screamed danger, more like someone running from something they didn't want to talk about. He rolled the car forward slowly and stopped beside her. She turned her head slightly, but didn't take off her sunglasses. "You lost?" Marcus asked, eyeing her through the open passenger window. "That depends," she said. Her voice was cool and steady. "Are you a psycho?" Marcus chuckled. "Not today." She gave the faintest smirk. "Then yeah, I could use a ride." He popped the door open, and she climbed in, dropping the duffel between her knees. "Where you headed?" he asked, watching her from the corner of his eye as they pulled back onto the highway. "LA," she said simply. "You?" Marcus shrugged. "Maybe LA, maybe somewhere close. Depends what's waiting for me there." "You're not running from anything, are you?" she asked, a little tease in her tone. He grinned bitterly. "Not anymore. There's nothing left to run from." The silence between them was heavy but not uncomfortable. It was the kind of quiet that happens when two strangers are pretending they're not curious about each other. After a few minutes, he glanced her way again. "You got a name?" She paused, then said, "Ray. Short for nothing." Marcus nodded. "I'm Marcus." They drove on, neither speaking much. The desert rolled past in waves of golden light and mirage. Marcus didn't know who Ray really was, and Ray didn't know about the startup flameout or the shattered dreams he carried in the back seat. They were just two people heading west, one broke, one mysterious, sharing silence, sunlight, and secrets neither of them was ready to tell. What neither of them knew was that this ride wasn't just about getting to LA, it was the beginning of something much bigger, something dangerous, something that could change everything. The road stretched endlessly into the dusk, the sky bleeding orange and purple over the desert horizon. Marcus had always found a strange peace in long drives, the hum of tires on asphalt, the quiet between exits, the feeling of motion even when life felt stuck. But with Ray sitting beside him, that peace was layered with curiosity. She hadn't said much since they started driving. No small talk, no oversharing, just calm, clipped responses, and a gaze that always seemed to be watching the rearview mirror. Eventually, she broke the silence. "So, what's your story, Marcus? You don't exactly look like a trucker," he smirked, keeping his eyes on the road. "Used to run a startup, built a fintech app, raised a few million, lost it even faster. Now I'm in the middle of nowhere, trying to sell what's left of my company, or failing that, find something that pays for gas." Former CEO, Ray said, now driving across Arizona, in a car with no air conditioning. Former CEO, Marcus repeated with a laugh. Current, unemployed philosopher. She chuckled. "A real one this time. Philosopher, huh? What kind of deep thoughts do you have out here in the desert?" He thought for a second, like, why did I pour my whole life into building something just for it to crash? Or why the people who say they believe in you are always the first to disappear when things go wrong? Ray didn't respond right away. When she did, her voice was quiet. "Sounds familiar." He glanced at her, but she had turned toward the window again. As night fell, the road darkened quickly. The gas gauge was dipping dangerously close to E. Finally, they spotted a flickering neon sign just off the highway. Sunset Arms Motel, weekly rates. No ref. It looked like the kind of place where people disappeared and no one asked questions. But Marcus was too tired to care. Inside, the lobby smelled like bleach and cigarette smoke. The front desk clerk barely looked up, handing them a key with a crooked smile. "Roommate, don't lose." As Marcus paid in cash, he noticed a man seated in the corner, greasy hair, oversized jacket despite the heat, and eyes that locked on Ray the second she walked in. He didn't blink, just stared. Marcus felt the tension in the room shift. Ray kept her cool, acting like she didn't see him, but Marcus saw the way her jaw clenched, how she held her bag just a little tighter. Later in the parking lot, she sat on the curb outside their room, talking in hushed tones, on her phone. Marcus stayed back, half hidden behind the car, not intending to eavesdrop, until he heard her say, "I told you I'm not coming back. He thinks I'm stupid, but I've got the files. If he pushes me, I'll bury him." Silence. Then, "I don't care what the media says, he framed me." She hung up quickly, and slipped back into the room like nothing happened. Marcus sat in the driver's seat, restless, thinking, her name Ray, it sounded familiar, didn't it? He pulled out his phone, though signal was spotty, and opened a news app he'd mostly stopped checking. It loaded slowly, buffering over weak service, but then it popped up, the name, breaking, billionaire heiress, Ray Langston, still missing after $80 million embezzlement scandal. There was a picture, same mirrored sunglasses, same jawline. Marcus stared at the screen, then looked toward the motel room, where Ray was now lying on the bed, the duffel bag beside her. That was, the hitchhiker in his car wasn't just on a road trip, she was on the run. And now he was in it with her. The desert sun was already high when Marcus woke up in the motel room, the air sticky and still. Ray was gone. For a moment, panic hit him. Had she disappeared in the night, taken off with his car, or worse, brought trouble to the door? But then the bathroom door creaked open, and she stepped out, drying her hands on a towel like it was just another normal morning. She gave him a casual nod. "Morning." Marcus tried to return the gesture, but his mind was a mess. All night, he'd stared at his phone, rereading the article, comparing her face to the one in the news. There was no doubt. Ray Langston, daughter of the late oil tycoon Grant Langston, sole heiress to Langston Global, was wanted for allegedly siphoning $80 million from her family's private accounts. The media painted her as a spoiled trust fund rebel gone rogue, but none of it added up. The Ray he'd driven across the desert with didn't seem like a thief. She was guarded, sure, but sharp, calm under pressure. Not some party heiress running from a scandal, more like someone running for her life. As they packed up and checked out, Marcus kept up the act. Small talk, sarcasm, like nothing had changed, but inside he was spinning. Should he turn her in, get clear of this whole mess before it pulled him under? He could already hear the cops asking why he didn't come forward sooner. How did you not know? Why did you help? They stopped at a run-down gas station off Highway 6, the kind with 2 old pumps and a soda machine that still took quarters. Ray stretched her legs while Marcus fueled up. He watched her from behind the glass, hair tied back, sunglasses back on, duffel bag never more than a foot away. He couldn't take it anymore. When she returned to the car with 2 coffees and a pack of trail mix, he took a deep breath. "I know who you are," he said quietly. Ray paused mid-step. "What?" "I saw the article. I know you're Ray Langston, the missing heiress, the alleged embezzler." She didn't speak for a second. Then slowly, she set the coffees on the dashboard and sat down. "I figured you'd check eventually," she said. No panic, no denial, So, is it true? Marcus asked. Did you take the money? She looked out the window, jaw tight. No, I didn't take a damn thing. My stepfather did. He's been setting me up for months. Since my dad died, he's been trying to take over the company. I found files, transfers, fake authorizations, offshore accounts. I confronted him. 2 days later, I'm all over the news, and everyone's looking for me. Why not go to the police? Ray scoffed. You think they're gonna listen to me over him? He's got senators in his pocket, lawyers on speed dial. I go back, I disappear. Marcus stared at her. She didn't flinch. Her voice didn't shake, and that was the problem. She sounded like she was telling the truth. But how could he know? Before he could respond, a low growl of tires filled the air. A black SUV pulled into the station slowly. Tinted windows, spotless exterior, the kind of vehicle that didn't belong in a place like this. Ray's face changed instantly. Her posture tensed. She grabbed his arm. That's them, she whispered. My stepfather's people. I recognized the plate. Marcus's instincts kicked in. Without another word, he dropped the pump, jumped into the driver's seat, and hit the gas. Tires screeched. As the Benz peeled out of the lot, the SUV followed, calm and steady, like a predator with all the time in the world. Drive fast, Ray shouted, her eyes wild. Marcus didn't know where they were going, only that turning back was no longer an option. Now they were fugitives. Together, Marcus's hands gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles turned pale. The Benz rattled as it pushed 90 down the cracked Arizona road, the black SUV looming behind them, like a shadow they couldn't shake. Ray sat rigid in the passenger seat, her gaze fixed on the mirror, calculating every move. They're not backing off, Marcus muttered. They won't, Ray said. Not until they have me, or I'm gone for good. Gone where? He asked. She looked at him, serious and sharp. There's an old airstrip 20 minutes from here. My dad used to use it when he needed to disappear quietly. I still know a guy who owes me a favor. If the plane's still there, I can be out of the country in less than an hour. Marcus blinked. A plane. This wasn't just a getaway, it was an exit from her entire life. They veered off the main road, onto a narrower sand-covered path. Dust plumed behind them, cutting visibility. The SUV swerved, but stayed close. Up ahead, the glint of metal came into view, a rusted gate, flapping in the wind. Behind it a faded hangar, and a runway cracked with time. And there, just ahead of them, was the plane. A small twin-prop Cessna, its engines sputtering to life. A man in oil-streaked coveralls waved them in. That's my guy, Ray said, already unbuckling. You got me here, now you can go. But Marcus didn't move. She reached into her duffel bag and pulled out a thick bundle of cash, hundreds stacked in rubber band. Here, she said, placing it on the console between them. $500,000, yours, for helping me get this far. Marcus stared at the money. It was more than enough to save his startup, to wipe his debts clean, to start over. He reached out, touched it, then pushed it back toward. I didn't help you for money, Ray frowned. Then why? You barely know me. Because I know what it's like to be buried by people with power, he said, to have everything ripped from you by someone who smiles while they do it. I don't want your money, I want to help you. She looked at him, the first crack of vulnerability showing in her armor. There's no winning, Marcus, only escaping. Not if we go public, he said. You said you had files proof your stepfather framed you. Let's use it. Let's take him down, legally, loud. If he wants to destroy your name, we beat him to it. The pilot waved urgently. The SUV was closing in. Ray hesitated. Ray, Marcus said, you run now, you're guilty forever, but if we fight, you don't have to keep running. The roar of the SUV grew loud. Dust clouds rose as it pulled up behind the hangar. Your call, Marcus said. Ray looked down at the bag, then back at the plane, and then she grabbed the cash, zipped the bag shut, and slammed the car door. Let's take him down. They jumped out, ran to the pilot, and handed him a flash drive. Hide this, upload it to the cloud and send it to the press. If you don't hear from me in 24 hours. The man nodded, took the drive, and throttled the plane down the runway. By the time the SUV reached the tarmac, the plane was airborne, but Ray and Marcus were gone. They weren't fleeing anymore. They were planning a war. They hid out in motels and roadside rentals, changing locations every few days. Marcus found himself slipping back into his old rhythm, late nights, caffeine-fueled focus, and whiteboards covered in chaos. But this time, it wasn't for pitching investors, or chasing profit. This time, it was war. Ray had everything. Emails, account ledgers, offshore transfer logs, all buried deep in encrypted files she had stolen before fleeing. Her father had entrusted her with limited executive access before his death. never imagining the same system would one day be used to ruin her. Marcus brought his skills to the table. The forgotten coding tricks from his startup days came back fast. He cracked encrypted folders, traced metadata, and pieced together a digital paper trail of betrayal. He was no longer just the broke ex. He was the one thing her stepfather hadn't anticipated, a witness with a brain. Night after night, they combed through data, whispering in the dark, eating instant noodles while plotting the fall of a corporate giant. Somewhere in between the strategy sessions and shared silence, something shifted. The tension turned from survival to connection. She wasn't the scared hitchhiker anymore, and he wasn't a man running from failure. They were a team. Eventually, it was time to go public. They scheduled an interview with a niche but respected independent journalist, known for exposing corporate corruption. Ray sat in front of a cheap motel desk lamp, with circles under her eyes, no makeup, and a quiet fury in her voice. "My name is Ray Langston," she said into the camera. "I didn't steal anything, but I have proof of who did." She laid it all out, the timeline, the lies, the transactions traced to her stepfather's shell companies. The footage went live on a Thursday night. By Friday morning, it had gone viral. People love a scandal, but they live for a redemption story. Within hours, the media turned. The FBI opened a formal investigation. Ray's stepfather, Harold Brenner, issued a cold, corporate denial, but the documents didn't lie, and neither did Ray. 2 weeks later, Brenner was arrested for fraud, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy. The embezzlement was traced back to his own accounts. Ray's name was officially cleared. She wasn't just innocent, she was a survivor who stood up against one of the most powerful men in the business world. For Marcus, vindication came quietly. No cameras, no headlines, just an email from the same investors who once ghosted him. "We're interested again, let's talk." But Marcus wasn't the same either. He didn't want to rebuild his company. He wanted to build something new, something that meant something. So did Ray. 3 months later, a new headline broke. Knight Langston Ventures launches $10 million tech fund for marginalized founders. The world called it bold, disrupt. But for Marcus and Ray, it was simple. Help the people like them, the underestimated, the overlooked, the dismissed. Their office was small, their staff was young, and their mission was clear. Back the dreamers no one else believed in. On launch day, Marcus stood beside Ray, dressed in jeans and a hoodie, holding a mic in one hand, and a vision in the other. "We didn't just survive," he told the crowd, "we built." Ray smiled beside him, a woman once hunted, now holding court like a queen. They weren't just partners in business, they were proof that even if the world throws you into the dirt, you can rise, not just to fight back, but to lead. They didn't save each other to walk away, they stayed, and together, they started a revolution. Sometimes, life puts two broken people on the same road, not to break each other further, but to rebuild something stronger together. When Marcus Knight stopped on that dusty Arizona highway, he thought he was offering a ride to a stranger. He didn't know he was stepping into a storm, one filled with betrayal, danger, and secrets that could have destroyed them both. At the time, he had nothing left to lose. No money, no business, no reputation, just a beat-up car, an empty gas tank, and the lingering weight of failure. Ray Langston, on the other hand, had everything. At least, that's what the world believed. Heiress to a billion-dollar empire, raised in wealth and legacy. But under the surface, she was alone, hunted, and framed by the very people who were supposed to protect her. She didn't need saving. She needed someone who would listen, someone who would believe her truth. When the rest of the world chose to believe lies, what began as a simple offer of kindness turned into something far more meaningful. Two people from completely different worlds, thrown together by chance, or maybe something deeper, found in each other the one thing neither of them expected: trust. Marcus didn't need to believe Ray, but he did. Ray didn't need to risk everything and stay, but she did. Through danger, doubt, and the looming threat of being captured or silenced, they didn't just survive, they strategized, they built, they fought back. And somewhere along that journey, through cheap motel rooms, cold gas station coffee, and late-night decoding sessions, they began to change. Marcus stopped seeing himself as a failed CEO and started realizing he was a visionary with a new mission. Ray stopped running and started standing up, not as a victim, but as a force to be reckoned with. Their story wasn't about a getaway, it was about taking control. When Ray exposed the truth and cleared her name, it wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. And when Marcus turned down the money and chose justice over survival, he wasn't walking away from his past, he was stepping into his purpose. Together, they launched something more than a business. Knight Langston Ventures became a symbol, a promise to those who felt ignored,
underestimated, and out of place in rooms where power was hoarded. It wasn't just about funding startups. It was about rewriting the narrative for people who'd been told no too many times. Marcus and Ray showed the world that a CEO and a fugitive, a so-called failure, and a framed heiress could come together, not just to escape the past, but to build the future. Their story reminds us that even when you've lost everything, you haven't lost yourself. That rock bottom isn't the end. It's the foundation for something real. Sometimes it takes being broken to realize what you're really made of. Sometimes it takes the wrong road to find the right destination. Marcus thought he was picking up a lost traveler. Ray thought she was running alone. But fate had other plans, because what they found on that road wasn't just freedom. It was purpose. It was partnership. It was the start of something that neither of them had dared to imagine. Not just a comeback, but a whole new begin. If you enjoyed this twist-filled ride, then you're not alone. Marcus and Ray's story is proof that life can throw some wild turns our way, but it's how we handle those twists that shapes our journey. From a broke CEO in a beat-up car to a fugitive heiress running from her past, their unexpected partnership shows us that sometimes the road to redemption isn't a straight path. It's one full of challenges, risks, and decisions that change everything. But what if you were Marcus? What would you have done if you were faced with the choice to help a stranger who might be guilty, or trust them when the world was telling you to turn away? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We love reading what you all have to say, and who knows, your insight might just be the spark someone else needs to think a little differently about their own journey. And remember, this story is more than just fiction. It's a reminder that in our darkest moments, we always have a choice. We can either run from the road ahead, or face it head on, with courage, integrity, and the willingness to make a difference. Marcus and Ray didn't just survive their pasts, they built a future from it. So if you're enjoying these powerful stories, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. There are more twists, more inspiration, and more life-changing moments to come. Until next time, stay inspired, stay bold, and remember, your next chapter could begin on a road you never expected. Who knows what's waiting just around the bend?